Thank you for choosing the Koala Care KB3000 Adjustable Height Changing Station. This video will take you through the installation process for the unit. Before beginning, review the installation and user guide. Installation should be carried out by a competent and qualified professional in compliance with local and national building code standards. This unit requires a hardwired electrical connection that must be prepared as set out in the instruction. Please ensure that the electrical supply is isolated from power during the installation via a breaker or other means. Please ensure that all pre-installation work has been completed as required before proceeding. The unit will arrive in 2 crates. One contains the standard build unit, or SBU. This will be mounted to the wall. The other crate contains the stretcher bed portion of the unit, which will be mounted to the SBU. All of the drivers required and the tamper-resistant hardware are provided. First, remove the SBU from the packaging. Position it against the wall so that you have access to the front and sides of the unit. The gas spring covers will arrive fitted to the SBU. Remove the 4 screws holding the cover in place from each of the covers. Note that the upper horizontal screw is a different size and has a hidden spacer inside the cover. Once the screws have been removed, the cover can then be removed by rotating up and away. Keep the covers and screws safe for reinstallation later. The front cover can now be removed. Start by removing the 4 screws which retain the aluminum beam on one side only as shown. There are 2 screws on the top and 2 screws on the bottom. The aluminum beam can now be freely rotated to release the front cover. The front cover can now be lifted out vertically and set aside for reinstallation. Take care not to scratch or damage the beam or front cover. Temporarily reinstall the screws into the aluminum beam to prevent any scratches during the next steps. The emergency stop should have been fitted as part of the pre-installation work. The wiring is traced inside the wall, and at least 11 13/16 inches of cable should be exposed. Looking at the rear of the SBU, locate the female connector. Then locate the male connector of the emergency stop, which should be extended from the wall. Make the connection by rotating the female connector clip cover and fully insert the male connector. The female clip cover should then easily rotate back over to secure the connection. Arrange the cable behind the SBU so that it is not visible once the SBU is against the wall. Ensure it does not protrude further than any of the other cables. This unit will arrive with the backup battery disconnected. Looking at the rear of the product, locate the female connector. Next, locate the male connector of the battery, which should be coming from the SBU. Make the connection by rotating the female connector clip cover and fully insert the male connector. The female clip cover should then easily rotate back over to secure the connection. Arrange the cable behind the unit so that it is not visible once the SBU is against the wall. Ensure it does not protrude further than any of the other cables. Warning: ensure the electrical supply is isolated from power while connecting the unit to the power supply. Position the SBU against the wall in the approximate mounting position, which will allow the main power cable to reach the outlet. Hardwire the product to the outlet in accordance with local and national regulations. Align the SBU to the wall at the center line of the prepared backed area, ensuring it is level. If the floor is uneven, the feet can be adjusted up to 3/4 of an inch by rotating the black plastic screw head on the bottom of the foot. With the SBU in place, mark out the 5 mounting holes, then pilot drill with a 1/8 inch diameter bit. Using the provided number 8 by 2 and 23/64 inch coach screws, secure the unit to the wall. Install the top 3 screws first and then the lower 2. Ensure the provided spacers are in place on the bottom 2 holes. On newer units, these spacers will be welded in place prior to delivery. Next, reinstall the front cover, which will need the control buttons connected to the SBU. Connect the 4 matching colored cables from the front cover to the corresponding centrally hanging cables from the SBU. Remove the screws that you temporarily reinstalled earlier from the aluminum beam. Rotate the beam out of the way. Now slide the cover into the opposite beam. Then pivot the beam back to receive the front cover. Reinstall the 4 security screws which retain the aluminum beam. Ensure they are fully tightened. Caution: take care when fitting the stretcher to the product. It is heavy, and we recommend 2 people install the stretcher. Bring the stretcher toward the unit. With 2 people, lift the stretcher and slot the SBU arms into the middle of each pair of stretcher brackets. Take care not to damage the cables coming out of the stretcher bracket during installation. They are taped to the stretcher with a label. Once in position, secure with the provided M10 by 16 mm bolts and M10 nuts. Finish by covering the nut with the caps provided. Once all the fasteners are secured, open and close the stretcher to check that it is moving freely and without restriction. Now connect the cable from the stretcher to the SBU. Open the stretcher and locate the cables coming from the SBU and the stretcher. Remove the label securing the cables to the stretcher. Connect the 4 matching colored cables coming from the SBU and the stretcher to each other. The electrical supply to the unit can now be safely turned on. Confirm that the buttons on the front of the stretcher function by depressing them to raise and lower the stretcher. To ensure that the cable is not accessible, the cable cover must be installed as follows. Using the tools and security fasteners provided, install the cable cover. The 2 horizontal screws are M5 by 8 mm and 1 vertical screw is M3 by 6 mm. The gas spring covers can now be reinstalled. Rotate the covers into position, opposite to how you removed them. Align the 4 screw holes and reinstall with the previously removed screws and internal spacer. The upper horizontal screw is M5 by 12 mm, with the remaining screws being M5 by 8 mm. The M5 by 12 mm screw requires the provided spacer to be reinstalled between the inside of the gas spring cover and the metal bracket. Once complete, a full function test of the unit is required, ensuring the following. The stretcher stows vertically and deploys correctly. The stretcher raises and lowers with no obstructions through the full height range. Both sets of buttons move the stretcher up and down. The guard stows securely and is retained by the magnets. The guard locks into position when deployed. The emergency stop immediately stops the stretcher when pressed and restarts after the emergency stop has been disengaged. Thank you for choosing the KoalaCare KB3000 Adjustable Height Changing Station.